50 plus tokens that most of them are securities. The Q&A exploded into, understandably, well, how do we know which one is a security, which one isn't? Why did Ethereum and Bitcoin get a free pass? And do you believe that's still appropriate, even though Ethereum, many people believe, was an ICO? Are you going to keep doing this regulation through litigation, which is what currently is going on, or are you going to set some clear criteria so people in the market will know if they're issuing a security or if something has become a real currency or a commodity because it has a real use case?
So it's a great set. It crosses chairs, it crosses party lines, it crosses different philosophies. I mean, Jay and I really met as he was in this job, and he was in his job, and I was at MIT. I think there's a lot of clarity. This Howey test and these other tests, Reeves test. There's something called Gary Plastic, not Gary Gensler. There's a number of tests that really is quite clear. What I'm trying to say about the platforms, and then I'll get to your point about regulation by litigation, I think was what Anja said.
Yeah. Actually, it's a question that I think came from John Burton and Julie Globus.
Yeah. Right there, John and Julie. But I think that the platforms, look, if you have 3 or 5 tokens, I'm not going to judge any one token. It's facts and circumstances. I'm not going to judge any one token on this open WebEx. It's possible. But when you get to 25, 50, 100 tokens, probabilities are it's pretty unlikely that all 50, all 100 don't pass the Howey test. And why is that? The Howey test at its core, 3-part test, but the Howey tested, did you give somebody money in anticipation of profits on their efforts? Now, usually there's a handful of people at the center of these XYZ project or ABC project. I'm not going to use names. There's usually a handful of entrepreneurs and technologists that, in effect, the investor is hoping those people do well. So that means anticipation of profits on the efforts of others. I think it's kind of just like reasonably clear. I would say very clear. Now, in terms of the enforcement, yes, we're going to use our enforcement authorities as my predecessors did 6 or 7 dozen times, and we'll continue to do that. What I'm also saying to those platforms, come in and discuss it with us, get registered, work with us and work with Congress if there's things that might be appropriately shifted in our laws, additional authorities or adjustments. That's what new technologies come along. Internet came along in the 1990s, and the SEC did do some adjustments under a great leader, Arthur Levitt. And Congress also weighs in from time to time. It shouldn't just be static, but I'm saying I think a lot of this is clearer than some of the entrepreneurs would like to think.
Understood.
With all respect.
Yeah, so you're focusing on the part of the Howey test that says a small group of people put this together. So
it's basically an anticipation of profits on the efforts of the sponsor or others, so forth. And it depends on the facts and circumstances, but that is the story of a lot of these circumstances.
So by that definition, would you draw a different line? Because Ethereum, of course, is backed by a small group of people.
So I'm not. Good try. You can try a 3rd and 4th time, but I'm not going to go into any one token.
Absolutely.
Gubir Grewal would tell me I shouldn't. He's our wonderful new head of enforcement. So
makes a lot of sense. I'll just disappoint the 100+ people who've asked this question in different ways.
But I wouldn't want to disappoint Gubir.
Absolutely.
So there's been a lot of collaboration. I'm going to do your second question first. There's been a lot of collaboration with other nations through the Financial Stability Board, through the usual forums, what's called IOSCO, and some bilaterals on a bunch of issues. I mean, financial stability, on money market funds, on climate risk, and yes, on something called the LIBOR transition. A lot of really good collaboration. In crypto, my observation that goes beyond my 3 months in the job, but also my study of it at MIT, a lot of collaboration around again, these financial forums around cryptocurrencies in terms of illicit activity, around stable coins, and look at some big projects like this Facebook project. I'd say that in the investor protection space, it's been a little bit more jurisdictional focused than international focused, and I think that's one of the challenges. I mean, I've had really good conversations with other regulators, but I think this jurisdictional approach has some of the platforms are trying to play arbitrage between jurisdictions.
Right.
On your earlier question, and I can't help but thinking, how do you stay so young? Because the audience might not know that Bob actually, if I remember, was a young staffer in the State Department in the opening up of China. Am I not mistaken that you were there?
That's correct, Gary. That's correct.
That you were like a staffer with Henry Kissinger going to China.
I was his economic advisor and went with China. So anyone who has a China issue or a complaint, call me up.
Oh my God, you were at the beginning of all that.
At that point, there was no trade and no investment at all. So it shows you went to the point of how the world's changed.
But that's why I'm raising that just for a moment to say a lot's changing. And so we layered as nation states over our digital money system. Remember, we went from paper to digital, and we layered over sanctions, anti-money laundering, tax compliance. So when Satoshi comes along in 2008, Halloween night, and writes this 8-page paper, nobody's noticing. I mean, there was the crisis. But it's not all that surprising. It started to be used as a private form of sort of arbitrage to avoid and skirt some of the public policy goals of sanctions, anti-money laundering, tax compliance. You're asking a different question about nation states and how they would feel, and I'm going to try to leave that to others in the administration amongst digital forms of money, Satoshi's private money and the public monies, but you're also highlighting there's potential competition amongst public forms of money. I think for the U.S., we've got an incredible capital market. We have really deep respect for the rule of law. We have open financial markets. And so I think one of the jobs I have as chair is to ensure that whatever years God and President Biden give me in this job, that I ensure that the capital markets are stronger when I leave it than when I got it. And that's why I'm thinking about projects in the equity markets, the treasury markets, the corporate and municipal markets, that we really ensure that they stay the shiny object, that, the most efficient markets in the world. So I hope that helps.
And that is a national security.
Oh, I think it's very much. I think the SEC is a domestic economic agency, but overseeing $100 trillion capital markets, it's a national security. I think it's one of our real secret sauces of the U.S.
I agree.
So Neil and Michael, with all respect, we've been awfully clear on a bunch of this stuff. So I'm pushing back a little bit, with all respect, and is that I think that Jay Clayton was pretty clear 4 years ago, or no, 3.5 years ago. I think 75 cases in this area, and you can go to the SEC website and see them, have been clear. I think the Dow report in 2017, the Munchie order late in 2017, on and on. I do think there's work that we're doing in custody. I doubt that's why Neil and Michael raised it. I do think there's work we're doing in custody that we can bring. I think that we're seeing some progression in the fund space. As I mentioned, we have some mutual funds, and I anticipate we'll have some filings, I'm being technical, under the 40 Act for ETFs and just investing in Bitcoin futures. But I think where we can use some additional work with Congress is on these platforms. We're going to do everything we can, and I do encourage those platforms to come in and talk to us, register. I mean, probabilities are you've got securities on your platforms. Maybe not, but and so I think we have these 6 or 7 different work streams, so it sort of depends. But I think we've got a lot of clarity. And it's not just these 75 cases we've brought. It's the law. is the law if you follow what the law is.
Great. Thank you very much.
Welcome to the Crypto Teacher. And guys, I come back with that video just to make you think. And we had Gary Gensler at the Aspen Institute speaking. And Gary Gensler on several occasions said Congress and the courts will actually make the decisions on regulation. We know the SEC is there to cover the banks. Guys, remember who's controlling crypto right now. The big bank. Remember, Gary Gensler and Janet Yellen is the Fed's chess pieces. In this video, they bring Bob from the State Department back when Henry Kissinger was in office. And we already know the history of Henry Kissinger. I've done plenty of videos on that. If you haven't checked them out, please go back to last year. And Gary Gensler bring up Henry Kissinger in China for a reason. Because we know the deals that Henry Kissinger made back then are changing the world now. We have been giving all of our technology to China since Henry Kissinger was in office. We know the plan, the rise of China and the fall of Babylon. The SEC is not going to help with any regulation until the banks are done with the casino. Because remember, when it comes to the New World Order, it's all planned out. Y'all have a wonderful day.
We're going to a different economy, and we're going to be learning more about that as we go. But clearly, we're learning that things can be done from remote locations. We're learning that technology can replace people even more than we thought.
We're not going back to the same economy. We're recovering, but to a different economy, and it'll be one that is more leveraged to technology. And I worry that that is going to make it even more difficult than it was for many workers.
In Silicon Valley, and my friends who work in technology know that what we did to the manufacturing workers, we are now going to do to the retail workers, the call center workers, the fast food workers, the truck drivers, and then even bookkeepers, accountants, insurance agents, lawyers, and on through the economy. So what happened to the manufacturing workers is a very clear sign.
This effort. And China has big plans for this. They intend to seed their digital yuan into the global environment by giving it away to visitors at next winter's Olympics. When they arrive at the airport, they're going to get yuan digital wallets. They're going to receive digital yuan. They're going to use it throughout their visits to Beijing, and then they're going to take it back to their home countries. They see this as a huge advantage. Why? Because who controls the underlying protocols, who controls the underlying standards of the future of money will control the future of money.
The most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda of an entire generation to come. Steve Jobs. And guys, I truly believe in this. When you look at the New World Order, they're the storytellers. And that's the reason why I wrote my New World Order book. But guys, now it's time to change the current generation. And I wrote 3 kids' books. I love the Trinity because I understand the power that's in it. So I have 3 books. We have an opportunity to change the generation, to educate, not just me, but I want to show you that I take action on a daily basis. And I want you to take action on a daily basis. Whether it's your job, whether it's in your community, we have an opportunity right now to educate the masses. I posted this on my Twitter account. Please share, but this is a short clip of the 3 books. There's going to be a clothing line and action figures. Please get these books for your kids, nephews, cousins, friends, so therefore we can start the re-education now. Because as we see, the 4th Industrial Revolution foundation is definitely here. Robots, algorithms, drones, taking humanity out the picture. We have to re-educate. But let's get into the video.
Part 1. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save the village. Part 2. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save New York. From COVID Stories 3. Part 3. King Joshua and Grandma Tam goes to China.
It's mandatory to get part 1, part 2, and part 3 of this series. It's time to re-educate Generation Z.